Whatever your money story is, whatever you may think your beliefs are, how would you like to change it? If it's a continuation of how you use revision and the law of assumption to manifest money, you can take the bold step of actually doubling what you'd love to see as your money manifestation. When you save up money for a rainy day, that emergency must come about because you have already imagined that that money has been allocated. However, if you can totally accept the feeling of what it will be like when you have this large amount of money. Welcome, my friend, to this week's episode with me, Fazila Bijo, on the Inner Work Mastery channel, where I help you understand, explore, and apply the teachings of great mystics like Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, Florence Scovel, Wallace D. Wattles, and many more, so that you can apply these teachings for how you manifest and create your reality. In this week's video, we are continuing with the theme of manifesting money. This is part 2 of Imagine Money, Double the Cash. Part 1 was about going from broke to cash. I must stress that while these results seem like they're instantaneous and magical, please remember that all of these people who have shown and proven success results started out with practicing the law. And in order to practice the law, you must actually understand the law. And in order to understand the law, you must explore these teachings. And that is what I do in these videos. I help you explore and understand these teachings so that you can practice them. It is only through your practice that you are going to get the kind of results that seem to be instantaneous. In this week's case study, we're going to be looking at how AJF doubles his money. And it took him another month before he could make his end scenes of doubling his cash into reality. If you're catching part 2 first, I suggest that you also look at part 1. Part 1 has 2 exercises which you can use in order to visualize and imagine the end of having money come into your bank account or receiving it via cash. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk about how you can actually keep in mind and reenact the end scene of having money in your bank account, which is greater than the sum that you actually have right now. Now, this is very important because, like I've stressed, and I will continue to stress throughout all of the videos that I do, the aim of these videos is to help you explore, understand, and then practice. In today's video, I want you to also get to understand faith and feeling. Neville talks about feeling as a secret, and I have a whole 4-part video series on that in terms of understanding that feeling is not emotion. Feeling is actually faith. And today, as you watch this video, I want you to understand what faith do you have in terms of fully accepting that your desires or your wish fulfilled are yours completely. One of the ways to ensure that your faith is strong is to revise any doubts you may have. And how we revise doubts is to ensure that when those doubts come up within ourselves, when you have the inner conversation, which is the mental conversation you have with yourself on an ongoing basis, I have yet to touch on this, but that inner conversation, if it is not aligned with your desire, if it is not aligned with your wish fulfilled, you're going to create doubts and challenges for yourself in terms of how you are going to manifest. Firstly, to start with today, I want you to understand, practice visualization. When you can practice visualization, you can then move into imagination, which is how you bring your imaginal scene, whatever you visualize, you now take it into the mind's eye. And when you are looking at this visual, the scene that you've created, you now bring your senses together with the visualization, and that's imagination. Imagination is not just fantasy. You are constantly imagining stuff that you've manifested in your life. I will encourage you to go and look at that because everything started out in imagination. What is your imaginal scene about? How do you feel when you are visualizing your scenes? What state of consciousness are you taking your visualizations into your imaginal space? I want you to start to become aware of that. If you're not aware of it, you may very well find that your manifestation is not going to come about, or even On the flip side, you may create the opposite of what you desire. And I see many clients, and I often hear from many people how they are not getting their desired end or their wish fulfilled. Are you ready and willing to change your money story? I asked you this last week. So here we are again. This is about you being conscious. What is your money story, and are you willing to change it? Part one, we had AJF, who won that sum of money when he was at the horse races. In part two, we're looking at the sequel to him doubling his cash, because here's what he wanted to do. His first win, he decided, was to address his financial constraints. But he desired more, and there is nothing wrong with desiring more. He wanted to ensure his family's future security. And so he decided he wanted to prove that the first time that he had manifested that sum of money at the horse races, that it was not just an accident. AJF reasoned that if his good luck could happen a second time in succession, after his first win, that the so-called law of percentages, odds, etc., of winning, no longer just based on chance, but it would give him proof that his imagination, that his imaginal scenes were actually producing that miraculous end result. So he dared to put his imagination to the test for a second time. Do you ever wonder why it's so difficult to change your money challenges or your financial situation of lack? Write down some of the things that you think are responsible for your money challenges. What you can do is observe the patterns or events that are repeating in your life. For example, have you had the situation where every time money comes in, you have an expense of a similar amount? These will start to show you your inner conversations are about and what you believe about money. Write those down. You want to make sure that you're changing them. As I've said, it has to do with your beliefs and you never having cleared those past experiences. So this is where revision plays a key part in changing the past. Whatever your money story is, whatever you may think your beliefs are, whatever you've written down now, what would be the ideal for you? How would you like to change it? If, for example, you have a belief that every time I receive money, every time I make money, or every time I have money, there's an expense or there's a situation that comes about. It may be an emergency. Do you have a belief that I have to save money for a rainy day? Well, guess what happens? When you save up money for a rainy day, that emergency must come about because you have already imagined that that money has been allocated. You have put that money aside for that time when you have an emergency, an expense, a crisis. So you are to now go and look at what are the beliefs that I hold within myself about my financial situation, about money coming into my reality, and not just money coming in, but about having money. Are you comfortable with having large amounts of money? We want to change those beliefs that are sitting behind the story. So AJF decided you must have a clear aim in mind. I wanted a sizable bank account. And to me, this meant seeing. Remember, you visualize, you can see the bank statement, and you visualize in your mind's eye, say, an amount that you want to have in your bank statement. It should be larger than what you have right now. He wants to see that larger balance in his bank account. Note in terms of his scene. He says, I enacted a scene, which means he constructs a scene which took him into two banks. At each of those banks, he says, I would hear the teller's cordial greeting. So the teller would give him an appreciative smile, and it would mean that they were so happy to see him. He asks for his bank statement. Now, bringing your senses in is going to help you bring your visualization strongly into your imaginal scene. Bringing your senses in is going to help you bring the feeling of how good it will feel when you've already achieved the wish fulfilled. And this is what you are to do when you are now bringing your scene in. How would you feel? What would you hear? What would you be saying to others? He says that I would hear the teller's cordial greeting. I would ask to see my statement. Now he brings his senses in where he says, I go to the bank. I see the teller smiling. I hear her greeting me, and I then ask to see my bank statement. Now, these are the normal things. It's a natural thing for anyone who is going to go into the bank, will speak to someone, whether it is the teller, maybe the bank manager, depending on your relationship with them, and they would be really courteous and happy to see you. So I want you to start to bring in these elements of your senses into your imaginal scene. He sees himself speaking to the teller, and his bank statement reflects an amount of $10,000. And then in the other scenario, he sees himself, when he speaks to the teller, he sees his bank statement is $15,000. Now, last week I mentioned this. If the amount feels too great, increase it incrementally. However, if you can totally accept the feeling of what it will be like when you have this large amount of money, whatever the sum is, then move on to bringing in your senses and really locking in. He says, though, my imaginal scene did not end there. Immediately after seeing my bank balances, he then does something quite clever. He says, I would in turn my attention to my horse racing system through a progression of 10 steps. And in that imaginal scene now, he would bring his winnings to $11,533. And he says he invests a starting capital of $200. Now, this is what he was doing. Most people will go to the how will I get this big amount of money? AJF knew that he had won at the races the previous month. Now he goes to the bank, sees the amount in there, and what he does is, in order to back it up, that he has this amount of money, he already knows how he had won at the races. And so he sees himself winning at the races again. This is a little bit more of a complex imaginal scene, but it's what worked for him. In his imagination, here's something else that he did. He said, I would divide the winnings from the horse races into 12 piles on my desk. Counting the money in my imaginary hands, I would put $1,000 in each of 11 piles and the remaining $533 in the last pile. This is what he would see when he had won at the races. My imaginative accounting would amount to $36,533, including my bank balances. So he was now bringing in not only what he was seeing in his bank balance, he now brought in the imaginal scene from winning at the races. And in terms of his senses here, he was counting money. This is important. The very, very important senses is what I hear, what I see, and what I'm touching. Now, if you can perfect how you touch and feel in your imaginal scene, you're going to make this real, because there's something that happens in terms of the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind does not know the difference between something that hasn't happened and something that is in the past. It does not differentiate. The conscious mind only accepts what you put into the imaginal scene. And while we do this, again, I will repeat this, you take this into your sleep state where you are going to imprint this into the subconscious mind. We want to access that drowsy state. And so what he was doing is he was reenacting all of these scenes with feeling, with his senses, before he would go to sleep. So here he says this, I enacted this entire imaginative scene each morning, afternoon, and night for less than 1 month. And on March 2nd, I went to the Caliente racetrack again. Very, very important part here. I want you to pause on. He stayed faithful. Now your faith is going to be the level of acceptance that you see the end has done. So when you go into imagination, there are some clients that I've had to steer them away from, this is just imagination, I can't believe that I'll have this, etc. So remember, your visualization is the picture comes in, but your imagination is you bringing it to life. And as I've said before, everything in the world has started with imagination. Every single idea started with imagination. It was the person who went ahead and saw it as being real and true, that they never doubted it, that they had faith in their imagination and their desire being real. That is what ignites it. That is what they hold true and they persist with, and that becomes real. So in the beginning, your results may not be consistent. Your results may not happen as easily. However, when you can make it real, when you can feel that this is real when I go into the imaginal state, you will start to see these results come about. The very important point I want to highlight for you is, however, if when you go into in your imaginal scene, say you do this morning, afternoon, and evening, but in your waking time, your mind is going to, how will I have this? I don't believe this. I think this is foolish. You're going to create more of that. You're going to take that much longer before your manifestation becomes fact. So I want you to realize your inner conversation that you are having, you are now to also change that. You rewrite it. If you think that this is too good to be true, change it to great things are always happening to me, or great things are unfolding for me right now. Change any negative feelings, any doubts, any conflicts. Keep true to that, and you will see things really change for you. And he talks about what's happened. Watch the following bridge of incidents, which means there are events that have unfolded in terms of staying true to what he believed. He now sees that his experience unfolds in this way. He says, I made up my tickets, but strangely enough, and not knowing why I did so, I duplicated 6 more tickets exactly like the 6 I already made out. He says, though, in the 10th selection, I made a mistake and I copied 2 tickets twice. He says, as the winners came in, I held 2 of them, each paying $16,423.50. So what he thinks is he made the mistake in terms of filling out his tickets. But what really happens is that duplication goes on to bring him the sum of money that he had been imagining. He says, I also had 6 consolation tickets, each paying $656.80. The combined total amounted to $36,788. Now we go back to his imaginary scene. My imaginary accounting 1 month before had totaled $36,533. Now that's not bad for employing your imagination, knowing that it is done, and you stay true to your imaginal scene. 2 points of interest that were most profound to me were that by seeming accident, I marked 2 tickets identically, and also that at the end of the 9th race, which was one of the major winners for him, the trainer attempted to scratch the horse, but the stewards denied the trainer's request. Scratching the horse means they would have taken it out of the race, but the stewards decided they would not go along with that. And this is what unfolded in terms of AJF's imaginary scene. Here we become aware of how subtle the threads were that led to his goal. In terms of your imagination, you will become aware of how true you've stayed to imagining your scenes by what your reality shows you. Your results will testify to how your imagination was really true or not. AJF faithfully imagined the end. He stayed true to seeing his bank statement. He didn't doubt it. He didn't think, oh, how will I get this money? He brought into his imagination the fact that he won at the races. As you can see, he says the amount of money that he won was very similar to what he had put into his imaginal scene. And also, his seeming mistake in terms of copying that winning ticket twice And then the other thread was the stewards refusing to scratch the trainer's request in terms of the horse in the 9th race. It all moved towards fulfilling his imaginal drama. And this is something we must realize. So Neville says the following: when man discovers that it is not the physical world of facts, but imaginal activities which shape his life, then the physical world will no longer be the reality, and the world of imagination no longer the dream. Align your intention, which is know what you want. And your beliefs should match your wish fulfilled, which means that if you have any beliefs that are going to create doubt or conflict within you, you must now look at that and change those beliefs for yourself. And then follow through with those actions that will match your goal. And thereby we tap into the power of the universe. We think that we are dealing with the material world, but we are actually living in a world of imagination. I would love to hear what you got out of today's teachings. These teachings can be a little bit complex. Go and watch the video again, make some notes. As you continue to watch these videos, you're going to find that your consciousness is going to continually expand. And what you, even from when you started out at the beginning of this video to where you are now, you've encountered different ideas and different thinking at a different level as well. My suggestion to you is that if you are really keen to explore and understand and raise your level of consciousness, is watch these videos more than once so that you can take on some of the teachings to become more part of your consciousness. You can also go and read further in terms of the books and the lectures that I am working through. This particular one is The Law and the Promise, and it's chapter 5 called Subtle Threads. Questions and comments of something that I may have mentioned in this video, please put them down. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I can also make a video on that particular topic because I know then that you are watching and you are getting benefit out of watching these videos. I know that my consciousness and my level of expansion just keeps growing each time that I work with these videos. So it's giving me personal growth and expansion. The fact that I get to help others learn and expand, and also to help you apply your imagination and your creative power, because this is what it is. Your subconscious mind and even your conscious mind, which is the ideas part of you, your subconscious mind is the creation part. When ideas and creation meet, you are explosive. You bring the world, you bring your world into reality. Now, if we each create the world that we wish to live in, we are up-leveling humanity. We are creating a whole new world. So join me each week as we create a greater reality, as we create a better world for us all. My name is Fazila Bijo, and it is my pleasure to have you along with me in this journey of up-leveling and raising in consciousness. Thank you for joining me in this week's video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.